This is Chris Blumer on NME Radio, and today on the show, I'm joined by James Dean Bradfield and Nicky from the Manic Street Preachers, who today released their 10th studio album, Postcards from a Young Man. Good morning, guys.
Hello, sir.
So, how's things with you today? Everything all right?
Yeah, locked and loaded, ready to go.
Oh, that's good to hear. Now, as I just said, your new album, Postcards from a Young Man, is out today. Do you get nervous when releasing new material?
Yeah, I think we feel really nervous. I think we kind of actually just feel scared sometimes when you're releasing a new record, because we've just been doing it for a long time, and we just know that there are many different ways this can end up, you know. So kind of like from experience, we know to expect, you know, it can be great or it can be terrible.
I think it's much easier when you're young, you know, there's just much more carefree attitude. There wasn't so much information. Gets to the point now where you can predict what's going to happen as soon as the first sales on the first day, you know.
Yeah.
So carefree attitude of youth is no longer with us.
Well, it's just been over a year now since Journal for Plague Lovers came out. Now, this album is musically very different, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Obviously, Journal for Plague Lovers was us kind of being the backing band to Richey's lyrics, and because it was Richey's lyrics that he'd left us, that had guided us, I think that made it a very intense and disciplined experience. And naturally, at the end of it, I think, you know, we felt kind of drained. It was a great creative experience and all that kind of stuff, but I think it kind of wanted to kind of participate in something which had a bit more of a joyful, escapist nature to it, really, and that's reflected in the music.
There's been an amazingly quick turnaround on this record, hasn't there, from the last?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because I didn't write any lyrics on Journal for Plague Lovers, which I was very happy about, because I could just bask in the glory of Richey's lyrics. But it did allow me time to stockpile a lot of words, a lot of ideas, some tunes, some artwork stuff. And, you know, this album always felt like it was going to be the follow-up to Send Away the Tigers, in all honesty. Bigger and better. But Journal for Plague Lovers was a sort of sidestep, and a really enjoyable one.
You're known for your iconic album covers, and Postcards from a Young Man has actually got a picture of the actor Tim Roth on the front. Have you met him before?
I don't know if we ever... Have we ever met him?
No, we've never met him. It ties in with stuff because he was kind of one of my heroes when I was young. There were two things I wanted to do when I was 15. I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be in a band, and just Nick came in with this picture, and it seemed to tie in with the past a lot, really.
You know, the fact he's got the Polaroid camera, I'm a huge Polaroid fan, and it just... The album is quite nostalgic. We're not pretending it's the most forward-thinking, genre-hopping album ever made. You know, it's the touchstones of our youth are kind of burnt into our memories, and they are reflected in this record.
So what did Tim think about being the cover star of a Manics album?
Well, when we kind of asked permission, he kind of got back pretty quickly, didn't he? You know. Yeah,
and I think he just wanted to hear a few tracks, and he was aware of the band. You have to go through a few layers with Tim because he's a Hollywood star, you know, so you have to deal with his people. But in the end, it was really quick, and I'd be really flattered by it because he looks amazing on the cover.
This is Chris Blumer on NME Radio, and on the show today, I'm joined by James Dean Bradfield and Nicky from the Manic Street Preachers, who released their 10th album, Postcards from a Young Man, today. So, the first single to be lifted from the album is It's Not War, Just the End of Love. Why did you choose this as the first release?
Just felt like a classic Manic single, you know, in the tradition of A Design for Life, All Your Love Alone's Not Enough. It just felt like it was a statement of intent, a great guitar riff, soaring strings, lots of emotion. I remember when James brought the tune in, me and Sean straight away just looked at each other and felt, you know, this could be the one.
This is the one that is going to be the first off the album. This is the sort of taster for the album, I guess.
Yes, I think that the title track itself, it was a close run thing between the title track and It's Not War, but it's kind of energized in a Manics way, you know. Just as soon as it comes on the radio, I think it's something of our signature sound.
Well, it sounds great on the radio. We're hammering it. Tell us about the video that accompanies the single.
It was a pleasure to shoot, to be honest, because Michael Sheen and Anna Friel are the two actors that do most of the work in it, and it's such a relief to actually do a video where somebody else displays their acting skills. The videos kind of has a bit of a kind of Cold War setting where it's reminiscent of the Kasparov kind of chess games that used to go on, which were kind of symbolic of the Cold War at the time, and it has a very kind of monochrome kind of setting, and the tension of the chess game kind of bleeds into the backdrop, basically. Yeah,
me and James were just, me and James and Sean were in a car just talking. I had this idea about an actor playing it. I thought Michael Sheen would be great. In some sort of face-off, I had in my mind maybe dancing or something, you know, Strictly Come Dancing kind of thing. And then James talked about the film Hunger. And then he talked about the chess match thing. And then Sean said...
Thomas Crown Affair, yeah.
Which has got the chess thing. And it all came together. So it's the video was kind of conceived by us and put together by Alex Smith, who we've worked with before, really good video director. And Michael and Anna were brilliant. It was a lot of passion going on.
Now, quite a few people have said the string section from It's Not War, gorgeous, The End of Love. Sounds a bit like the Steps track Stomp. Have you heard this on the internet being discussed?
Good grief.
Well, I mean, what it is that track you're on about is actually a rip-off of Chic, and the chord structure is quite similar to Chic.
You've been keeping this from me, why?
The Steps thing almost samples it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So there is a kind of thing. If you listen to it, there is a kind of similarity.
You just heard my moment of surprise. It just shows the subconscious plays dirty tricks on you.
Having said that, there's nothing wrong with sounding like Chic, is there?
No.
You know,
The cool 70s disco sound will never go out of fashion.
never.
This is Chris Blumer on NME Radio, and today I'm in conversation with James Dean Bradfield and Nicky from the Manic Street Preachers, who today released their 10th album, Postcards from a Young Man. Now, the album features the likes of Ian McCulloch from Echo and the Bunnymen, also ex-Guns N' Roses bassist Duff McKagan, and the Velvet Underground's John Cale. What were they like to work with these guys?
All completely different experiences. I mean, the three guests actually turned up to the studio was Ian McCulloch. And having Ian McCulloch in the studio for a day was just slightly surreal, because he was the first person I'd ever seen in concert with Richey and Sean. Echo and the Bunnymen was the first concert we all went to see when we were young. So having him in the studio for a start, it was, you just can't quite believe it, really. But yeah, he's still the lip in terms of kind of like, he can still take you apart with a well-aimed comment. But he put so much work into the vocal at the end of the day. He really, really mined his soul for the right take, and that was just so impressive. And then John Cale and Duff McKagan, they did their parts separately in America and then sent them over to us, which is fine, because if Duff McKagan and John Cale, two people with so much experience and pedigree, you know, you're going to trust their performances. Yeah. You don't have to tell them what you want.
And James has worked with John Cale quite a few times over the years. I think he's the one person we can all honestly say we've known that John Cale is a true musical genius.
Yeah, he is,
he can play anything. He comes from John Cage and Stockhausen, but kind of turns it into pop, you know, and Duff was just my bass playing hero along with Paul Simonon, and, you know, he told us he was going to get I'll get my old rig out that I recorded Appetite with just for you guys.
Which is hard. I think it's hard to understand people, the thrill that gives you, you know. Yeah. It sounds quite nerdy that he's getting the bass amp and the bass that you use on Appetite Obstruction.
It's history, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, geez, can't believe this is happening. I know. Yeah. And I think, you know, that's why we made, you know, on your 10th album, you can either make the decision to kind of like, you know, reinvent yourself, or you can celebrate what you've been and what you've done and what you can do. And that's what we decided to do. We decided to celebrate the nature of the band.
Is there anybody that you haven't worked with yet that you'd like to work with in the future?
Definitely like to write a song for Charlotte Church.
Would you really? Yeah.
Yes, I think she's got a really underrated kind of Dusty Springfield inside her that's going to come out.
And talking of writing, Nicky, is it true that you've written a script for Doctor Who?
Yeah, I'm in the process of doing it. I asked Michael Sheen if he fancied playing Dylan Thomas in it. I'm sure he'd just been nice to me, really, but he said yes. I mean, I haven't been commissioned. It's just something I'd done as a fan. I did write a script for Cracker many moons ago called Dead Trees and Traffic Islands, which is still lying in one of my drawers with many other ideas.
Now, let's go back to June, because a couple of months ago you completed your hat-trick of appearances at the Millennium Stadium when you supported Sir Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
How was that? I imagine that was one hell of a day, wasn't it?
It was amazing.
Breathtaking to watch him.
I think, you know, I've seen so many performances on stage where kind of like I've been jealous, I've been envious, or I've been, you know, absolutely awestruck by somebody's performance. But this was the only time where you were just watching something and it was touched with a bit of sadness, because you just thought there's no one that can do this anymore. He's one of the last people. It's almost like being stuck by a lightning bolt. The symbiotic nature of his body, his mind, his voice, his movement, everything just comes together. Just watching somebody who's 68 years old play for 3 hours, play over 40 songs, and can seamlessly play Oobla-dee Oobla-da next to Helter Skelter. I mean, that's just genius in itself, you know, going from the one mindset to the other. But just, I've never seen anybody that can actually do that and just be so natural and so at one with themselves. I was absolutely and utterly awestruck, you know, just was.
And what happens at that sort of gig? Does he sort of call you up personally to invite you, or does his management do that?
Yeah, I mean, with this, we had an invite through, you know, those kind of channels. And I think there's a certain element where he does choose, you know, he's still engaged with music.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean he's a huge fan of us, but, you know, obviously in Wales and I obviously just thought it'd be a good idea. And we had the pleasure of meeting him afterwards. The mad thing is as James spotted on the night, which he's come out saying now, is he doesn't drink any water on stage. And it's because he says it's not professional. It's messy to drink. He doesn't have any liquid on stage.
And there's me on stage after every 2 songs, like a WWE move, just tipping water over my head and everything. It made me feel ashamed of myself.
This is Chris Blumer on NME Radio, and on the show today I'm joined by James Dean Bradfield and Nicky from the Manic Street Preachers, who released their 10th album, Postcards from a Young Man, today. Now, we're just talking earlier about your gig at the Millennium Stadium in June with Sir Paul McCartney, and talking of live work, you commence your UK tour at the Glasgow Academy next Wednesday. You're going to be on the road right the way through till the 1st of November. Is this your biggest ever UK tour?
Pretty much so, I think. I can't remember a longer one. Maybe way back in the day. We felt kind of duty bound to go to some places like Lincoln, we've never been to before. Carlisle, I don't think we've been to for 10 years or something. Derby, Blackburn, just places which might not seem that glamorous, but, you know, we just felt on this tour we wanted to reach as many people as we could.
Yeah, we know what that feeling is like, where people
bypass you.
You bypass the place where you come from,
Yeah.
you know. And also, I just think we just get excited about touring, because it's the one thing about being in a band still. It's the one aspect of being in a band which you can still have complete control over. Whereas everybody's talking about the industry and how music is downloaded, etc., whatever. You know, you still actually feel as if you're following the footsteps of rock and roll tradition when you play these places. You know that Ziggy era, Bowie has played these venues, and the Clash have, and the Thin Lizzy. So you're still in control of the live thing.
Do you like living out of a suitcase when you're doing these tours?
Yeah.
It's just like visiting new places.
Yeah, the album in itself is a bit of a celebration of that. The idea of motion, coffee, of a record shop and a magazine, and wandering around a city, wherever that might be. It's just hugely pleasurable to us, you know. That idea of solitude, which is hard to get in life these days. Once you're on the bus, it's just us. You know, there's not much rock and roll anymore, but there's just plenty of kind of thought and contemplation. It's lovely.
And I bet you're really looking forward to getting to perform this new album live just almost immediately after it's come out.
Once we learn the songs.
Yeah, once we learn the songs again. You have this intense period of just like trying to make a record right, and then you take a month break from it, and suddenly you got to relearn it all again. And I do worry about my brain. 10 albums worth of lyrics, it might be a tipping point for my head.
Do you have to write the lyrics down and put them in front of you on the stage?
No, I'm actually finding that I'm having to revise. I never thought I'd get the age of 41 and have to revise ever again in my life. There's no teleprompter yet.
It seems like his hard disk might be full up. Do you know what I mean? That he needs like a USB stick to go in his year with extras.
It is. This is utterly true, unfortunately.
Well, listen, guys, it's been great to chat to you today. I wish you all the best with the tour, and of course your new album, Postcards from a Young Man, which is out today. James Dean Bradfield and Nicky from the Manic Street Preachers, thank you very much.
Pleasure, sir. Ta.